Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really trying to get to the bottom of justice.
Oh, yeah.
We want to figure out, not just like the legal definition,
Right.
but how it's actually experienced out in the world.
Yeah.
Where does it fall short? And what does it actually look like when it works?
Big questions.
Big, heavy questions. And the source material is just as heavy. Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson.
Yeah, it's a powerful book. It really is.
I was so drawn in by Stevenson's journey. I mean, he starts at Harvard Law.
Like the top at the top.
You would think, right? You're surrounded by these brilliant minds.
Exactly. Fighting for good.
That this has got to be the heart of justice.
Right.
But he talks about this disconnect.
Yeah. He's disillusioned. Right.
Between what?
Between that theoretical world of law school and what he's seeing in the South.
Like it's not matching up.
Not at all.
So he's clearly drawn to, issues of poverty and race.
Of course, yeah.
But it feels like something is missing from his early law classes.
Yeah, it's all abstract legal theory.
Right.
And not what he's seeing. He wants to get out there and do something about these injustices, right?
And then he gets an internship with the Southern Prisoners Defense Committee.
Okay.
In the 1980s.
So we're talking the death penalty is back on?
Yeah. Executions are ramping up again.
There's a huge need for lawyers to represent people on death row.
Yeah, and I think that's where it really hits him, the difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what a contrast.
Coming from Harvard Law to this.
It's a frantic environment.
Yeah.
You've got daily calls from these condemned individuals. Many don't even have a lawyer.
Oh, my God.
Execution dates are looming.
It's high stakes.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And this is where he meets Henry.
Okay.
A man on death row.
Okay.
Hasn't even spoken to a lawyer yet.
So Stevenson's just thrown in.
Right into the fire.
Yeah, and the way he describes his first visit to death row.
Heavy.
Oh, it's so intense, this heavy atmosphere.
The chains clanging.
Yeah.
It's a lot, especially when you're new to this world.
Oh, I bet. It really just shakes him.
Completely changes him.
The gravity of the situation.
Yeah, to be face to face with a condemned man.
Yeah.
In this intensely charged environment, it shakes him to his core. But
Yeah.
you know what? It also fuels his determination.
To fight.
To fight for justice.
Yeah, there's something driving him, though.
Oh, for sure.
More than just a sense of duty.
It's personal.
He talks about his own family's history.
Yeah.
Being shaped by the legacy of slavery.
Absolutely.
Segregation.
All of it.
This isn't just some abstract legal concept for him.
This is real.
It's in his blood.
Like his grandfather was murdered.
Oh.
His grandmother. Her whole worldview.
Yeah.
It was shaped by slavery.
Those experiences stay with you.
They still with you. And these stories,
Yeah.
they instilled in Stevenson this deep empathy
Oh, yeah.
for the people society deems, less worthy.
Yeah. The marginalized.
Pushed to the margin.
Yet forgotten.
Yeah, the forgotten. And it's this personal history that fuels his desire to challenge mass incarceration.
He really zeroes in on that.
He keeps saying we need to get closer to the people and communities most impacted by these issues.
He doesn't want to be in that ivory tower.
He doesn't. He wants to be on the ground.
He wants to understand.
Yeah.
So for Stevenson, it's not just individual cases.
Right.
He's looking at the big picture.
The whole system.
The societal forces at play.
Mm-hmm. He's worried about the soaring prison populations, sure, but also
The ripple effect.
the collateral consequences of mass incarceration.
Can you explain that?
Sure. So collateral consequences are like the aftershocks of a conviction
Okay.
that go way beyond prison walls. Like losing the right to vote,
Oh, wow.
facing discrimination when you're trying to get a job,
Makes sense.
the generational trauma that impacts families for years.
Yeah.
It's a system where people are punished long after they've served their time.
Right.
It just keeps going.
So almost like we need to redefine what justice even means
Exactly.
if the punishment doesn't end.
Yeah. If it just keeps going, is that really justice?
Right. And I think that leads us perfectly into Walter McMillian's case.
The heart of the book.
Because here's a successful black man in
Yeah.
Monroeville, Alabama, targeted because of his interracial relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a story from another time.
It's really striking how this case just reveals how deeply racism is woven into the justice system.
Especially in the Deep South.
Especially there.
Yeah.
He's accused and convicted of murdering a white woman
Right.
based on flimsy evidence.
Yeah, like almost nothing.
Coerced testimony. It's just...
But how? How does that even happen?
Like, how does the legal system just allow that?
Yeah, like nobody steps in and says, wait a minute.
Exactly. Like, didn't anyone see this evidence was fabricated?
Yeah.
The system fails Walter at every single turn.
At every turn.
The judge, Robert E. Leakey, comes across as so prejudiced, just dismissive of Walter's case from the start.
Wow.
And then they move the trial. A whiter, more conservative county.
Oh, come on.
Basically guaranteeing an unfair jury.
It's like they're not even trying to hide it.
It's hard to ignore the racial dynamics here.
It really is.
This is systemic bias.
Yeah.
Seeping into every stage of the process.
And to make matters worse.
The police and prosecutors withhold evidence.
Oh, no.
That could have proven Walter's innocence.
From the beginning.
From the very beginning.
It's enraging.
It is.
And the way Stevenson describes death row.
Awful.
It's brutal.
It's inhumane.
This is a man who was respected in his community.
Right.
And now he's facing brutality.
Constant fear.
Despair.
It's a complete contrast to his life before.
It really highlights
With the psychological toll
of a system that just dehumanizes.
Absolutely.
And in Walter's case, he's facing the ultimate punishment.
For a crime he didn't commit.
While the real perpetrator is out there.
It's heartbreaking.
So Stevenson's fighting this uphill battle.
Oh, yeah. Against a system that's stacked against him.
Against his client.
Yeah. He even talks about feeling overwhelmed at times.
I can only imagine.
And then he has this encounter, this elderly black man in a wheelchair.
Okay.
And this man gives him this incredibly powerful piece of advice.
What is it?
He tells him to beat the drum for justice.
Wow.
Right. Amidst all this despair, this
Yeah.
frustration.
Yeah.
This man reminds him why he's doing this work.
Yeah.
It fuels his determination to keep fighting.
No matter the odds.
No matter the odds.
But it's not just words.
No.
There are real threats.
Oh, absolutely.
Attempts to derail Walter's case.
To intimidate.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of the risks.
Of challenging the status quo.
Especially when race and power are involved.
Yeah. So how does he fight back?
How does he even begin?
Yeah, what tools does he have?
He starts by dissecting the case.
Okay.
Piece by piece. Exposing the fabricated evidence, the police coercion, the prosecutorial misconduct.
Okay, so he's going through it all with a fine-tooth comb.
He's meticulous. And he files this thing called a Rule 32 petition.
What's that?
It's a way to present new evidence.
Oh.
And challenge the validity of Walter's conviction.
Okay. Can you break that down a little? I mean, legal procedures.
Right, it's a mouthful.
They're tough.
Basically, it gives the defense another chance.
Okay.
When there's evidence of a major error, you know,
okay,
or injustice.
Okay.
They can present new evidence that wasn't available during the original trial.
Okay.
It's like a do-over, in a way.
A chance to get it right.
Exactly.
But it's not just Stevenson doing this.
No.
There are others.
Oh, yeah.
Who come forward to help Walter.
Absolutely. One of the most inspiring is Mrs. Williams.
Who's that?
She's this elderly black woman, embodies resilience.
Okay.
Unwavering faith in justice.
Wow.
Despite mistreatment,
Okay.
attempts to intimidate her. She's a constant presence in court.
Wow.
A symbol of the community's hope for a just resolution.
I love that. A symbol of hope.
Yeah.
And then you have these people who initially gave false testimony.
Right.
Coming forward.
To recant their statements.
Wow.
It's amazing. They reveal how deep the system's complicity goes in this wrongful conviction.
It's like they couldn't live with it anymore.
The guilt.
Yeah.
It's a powerful testament to, I don't know,
truth.
the belief in truth and justice, right?
Yeah.
These people, they risked a lot by admitting they were part of this fabrication.
Yeah.
And it shines a light on the pressure and manipulation they faced.
From law enforcement.
Yeah, scary stuff.
Walter's case, it's just one example in this book, right?
One of many.
Of how justice is denied.
Yeah.
It feels like Stevenson's work.
It goes beyond.
It goes way beyond
Okay.
representing individuals.
It's changing everything.
Our whole understanding of what justice means.
Right.
In a society built on racial injustice.
Exactly. I mean, how do we define justice when the system itself
Is flawed.
is rooted in inequality?
Yeah, that's the question he keeps asking.
Throughout the book, he's making us grapple with it.
Yeah, and he's arguing.
Yeah.
Simply following the law.
Isn't enough.
Not enough, especially when the law itself.
Is a tool of oppression.
He's not just talking about the legal system.
Yeah. It's bigger than that.
He's worried about all these societal forces
Yeah.
that contribute to mass incarceration
Absolutely.
and the dehumanization of entire communities.
He's like a vicious cycle.
He keeps mentioning collateral consequences.
Right.
Maybe we should unpack that a little bit more.
Okay.
because it seems so important to redefining what justice even means.
Yeah, it's like these consequences.
Yeah.
Losing the right to vote, job discrimination, the impact on families, communities. It creates the system where people are punished long after they've done their time.
Right. It's like a life sentence even after the sentence. A form of social and economic exclusion.
Yeah.
And it just keeps these cycles of poverty and marginalization going.
Unfortunately.
So he's making a case for, like,
a broader view,
a more holistic understanding.
of justice. Yeah.
One that takes into account all these systemic factors
Right.
that contribute to crime and punishment.
Like, we need to look beyond the individual.
Yeah.
Consider the social context, the history, the policies. All these things create conditions where injustice thrives.
Right. It's not just about, like, locking people up.
No.
It's about addressing the root causes of crime.
Exactly.
And this isn't just theoretical for him.
Oh, no.
He's out there
In the trenches.
working directly with people
Yeah.
who are caught in this system, fighting for their dignity,
Humanity.
even when society has basically written them off.
Deemed them disposable.
Yeah.
He shares some really powerful stories about other individuals who've been failed by the justice system.
So,
Horace Duncan's.
who's that?
Intellectually disabled man.
Oh, wow.
Executed.
Oh, no.
Despite a botched lethal injection.
No kidding.
And pleas from his family. It's just how...
It's hard to even fathom.
Yeah, how can a system be so broken?
To ignore basic human rights like that.
To inflict that kind of cruelty.
It's awful.
It's dehumanizing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And he also tells the story of Herbert Richardson,
Okay.
a Vietnam vet,
Okay.
traumatized,
Okay.
sentenced to death
Wow.
for a crime probably driven by his mental illness.
Which was untreated.
Untreated.
These stories are just so hard to read.
They're tough.
It feels like the system just isn't equipped
At all.
to deal with mental illness, intellectual disability.
And that's a huge part of Stevenson's argument.
What's that?
We need a system that focuses on rehabilitation,
Okay.
understanding,
Not just punishment.
not just punishment. He's not saying people shouldn't be held accountable.
Right.
But true justice requires compassion, recognizing the humanity in everyone.
Even those who have committed terrible acts.
Even then.
It's also striking how many of the people he represents
Yeah.
are children,
Oh, yeah.
tried as adults.
It's heartbreaking.
These kids are barely teenagers.
Thrown into a system meant to punish,
Yeah.
not rehabilitate.
Or offer second chances.
At all.
He's so passionate about advocating for incarcerated children.
It's a big part of his work.
He tells the story about Charlie,
Oh, yeah.
a 14-year-old,
Tried as an adult.
for defending his mother.
From abuse
It's a complete failure
of the system.
to protect vulnerable children.
To protect.
And it just pushes them further
It's this cycle.
of violence and incarceration.
Sadly.
And then he talks about this super predator myth
Oh, yeah.
that came about in the 90s.
Right.
This idea that there was this generation of young criminals,
Ruthless.
remorseless,
Who need to be locked up for life.
forever.
It's awful. And it had devastating consequences.
Yeah.
These harsh sentencing laws.
Targeting young people.
Especially black and brown youth.
It's so messed up.
He shares stories of kids like Trina, Ian, Antonio,
Yeah.
whose lives were just ruined.
By this policy.
Decades behind bars for minor offenses.
It's just, it shows you how fear and prejudice can drive policy decisions.
And lead to widespread injustice.
Absolutely.
But Stevenson doesn't just focus on these individual cases.
Right.
He connects them.
To bigger themes.
Yeah.
He wants us to think critically how our systems operate.
Yeah.
And how they impact the most vulnerable.
He keeps saying justice is a shared responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just something that happens in a courtroom.
No.
It's about how we treat each other.
Yeah.
In our everyday lives.
Day to day.
How we treat the most vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
How we respond when we see injustice.
Right. He uses this powerful image.
What is it?
Of stone catchers. The people who protect the vulnerable from the stones of judgment and punishment thrown by society.
It's a beautiful image.
It is.
It really resonates with me.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play.
Yeah.
In creating a more just world.
It's not just the work of lawyers and activists.
It's all of us.
It's our everyday choices.
Yeah.
How we treat each other.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the failings of the system.
Yeah.
The impact on individuals.
Mm-hmm.
The need for a more holistic understanding of justice.
Absolutely.
But how do we move beyond critiques?
Right. How do we actually do something?
How do we start redefining justice?
In a way that's real.
Yes, tangible, actionable.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
That's what Stevenson wants us to wrestle with.
He's saying defining justice requires more
than legal pronouncements.
You need to look at the history.
Understand the root causes.
Yeah.
And embrace a set of values.
That guide our actions.
To guide us.
So what are those values?
What does this new vision of justice actually look like? Well, he emphasizes mercy.
Okay.
To understanding that everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And punishment shouldn't be the only response.
It's wrongdoing.
Right. He talks about truth and reconciliation.
Especially when it comes to racial injustice.
In America.
That feels crucial. Can you explain that a little more?
Sure. He's saying we can't move forward
as a nation
without acknowledging the wounds of slavery.
Jim Crow.
Systemic racism that's still present today.
It's like we're trying to ignore it.
Yeah, but we can't. He's advocating for a process where we confront these hard truths, listen to the stories of those who have been harmed, and work to repair the damage.
It's about healing and restoration.
Not just punishment.
It's about seeing the world through the eyes of those who have been marginalized.
And oppressed.
Yeah.
And that's a core principle for Stevenson.
What is?
Proximity.
Okay.
Getting closer to the people. And communities most affected by injustice.
He believes that true understanding and empathy
can only come from direct engagement.
With those realities.
With poverty, racial bias, systemic oppression.
You have to see it to understand it.
You do.
And he doesn't just talk about it.
No.
He lives it.
He does. He spends hours visiting his clients in prison.
Yeah.
Getting to know their stories.
Their families.
Their communities.
It's about recognizing that every human being deserves dignity and respect.
Regardless of their circumstances.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that our humanity is interconnected.
Right.
And that injustice anywhere
is a threat to justice everywhere.
Exactly.
So it's a call to action.
It is.
It's not just about changing laws.
It's about changing hearts and minds. He wants us to be stone catchers.
In our own communities.
Yeah.
To stand up for those being targeted.
Speak out against inequality.
Support organizations
that are working to create a more just world.
Okay, so we've talked about mercy.
Yeah.
Truth and reconciliation. Proximity.
Proximity.
What else? How else does Stevenson challenge us?
To rethink our approach to justice.
Yeah.
Well, another key thing he talks about is hope.
Okay, hope.
He says hope is essential
to the pursuit of justice.
Yeah. It's the fuel that keeps us going.
When it feels impossible.
When we face these huge obstacles.
Yeah.
It's about believing in the possibility of change, holding on to that vision of a better future.
Even when the present is bleak.
Especially then.
He's not just talking about, like, a positive attitude.
No.
It's deeper than that.
It's a belief in human transformation.
Even in the darkest of places.
And, you know, he finds hope in unexpected places.
Right.
The resilience of his clients.
Yeah.
The kindness between inmates on death row.
Oh, wow.
The people who recant their false testimonies.
Yeah.
These are the sparks of light.
That remind him.
That even amidst all this suffering, injustice, the human spirit can endure.
It's powerful.
It is.
And he also talks about the importance of discomfort.
Discomfort.
Yeah, like being willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Or biases.
Yeah.
To confront the ways we might be complicit.
And systems of injustice.
Yeah, he shares his own experiences.
Right.
Racial profiling.
Oh, wow.
Being mistaken for a criminal.
Just because of his skin color.
Exactly. And these encounters, they force him to face this reality.
That even as a lawyer.
Fighting for justice.
He's not immune.
To the biases that permeate our society.
That must have been a huge realization.
It was, and he's challenging us to do the same.
To look inward.
To acknowledge our blind spots.
To see our own biases.
He's saying the pursuit of justice starts with self-reflection.
Okay.
Being willing to examine our beliefs, our behaviors.
Yeah.
To recognize how we might be contributing to the problem.
Even unintentionally.
Even if we don't mean to.
That takes courage.
It does.
To confront those uncomfortable parts of ourselves.
And our history.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's essential for change.
He's saying justice isn't just about reforming institutions.
It's about transforming ourselves.
Expanding our capacity.
For empathy, compassion, understanding.
Wow. So it feels like he's pushing for this total, like paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Away from just punishing people to a system that focuses more on like
rehabilitation.
Yeah, restoration.
Recognizing our shared humanity.
Yeah, and he keeps coming back to that idea that justice,
it's on all of us.
It's a shared responsibility.
It's not just something that happens in a courtroom.
Right.
It's about how we live our lives every single day.
Our everyday choices.
How we treat each other, how we treat the most vulnerable.
Yeah, how we respond when we see injustice happening.
Yeah, are we going to be those stone catchers? Are we going to step up?
But it feels overwhelming sometimes, you know?
Right.
Like, what can one person do in a system that feels so broken?
I get it. I totally get it.
Feels like an uphill battle.
It is, but Stevenson reminds us that change happens one person at a time.
Okay.
One action, one conversation.
It's those little things.
It's finding our own way to beat the drum for justice.
So it could be?
It could be volunteering. It could be donating to organizations that are doing good work.
Yeah, educating yourself.
Educating ourselves, educating others, having those tough conversations with our friends and family.
It starts with looking in the mirror, acknowledging our own role.
Our own complicity.
And being willing to challenge the status quo.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
It's about getting uncomfortable.
It's about embracing that discomfort, being willing to have the hard conversations.
Let's challenge ourselves.
And stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
You know, we started this deep dive asking what justice really means.
A big question.
And after going through Just Mercy with you, it feels less about a dictionary definition.
Right.
And more about, like, this constant striving.
A journey.
A journey toward a more just world.
A better world.
Yeah. One where everyone is treated with dignity.
With humanity.
And Stevenson gives us a powerful way to think about justice.
Absolutely.
One that goes way beyond the courtroom.
It touches every part of our lives.
And he reminds us that we all have a role to play.
In creating that more just world.
It's not just on the lawyers and activists.
It's on all of us.
It's about hope, compassion, and being willing to challenge the status quo.
Those are the tools.
We need those tools.
This has been heavy, but really insightful.
Incredibly insightful.
So as we wrap up,
what
do you hope our listeners will take away from this deep dive?
I hope they feel empowered to make a difference.
Yeah.
I hope they have a better understanding of, like, how complicated justice is.
It's not simple.
And a renewed sense of commitment.
Yes.
To creating a world where everyone can truly thrive.
A world where everyone has the opportunity to live a life of dignity and fulfillment.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember.
What's that?
That it's not just about these big systemic changes.
Right.
It's about the small choices we make.
Every day.
The way we treat each other. How we engage in our communities.
We can all be stone catchers.
In our own way.
That's a great way to put it.
So keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
Keep questioning. Keep demanding justice.
The world needs more stone catchers, and it starts with us.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.